really, what do we expect?
If this is the life that Rhaenyra wanted, then she should have run away with Kristen Cole in the last episode. She had her chance, and she said she chose duty, and then she didn't do it.
Dragonclaw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
Alrighty. We've kept the audience in hype enough. I've been building up this conspiracy enough. I think we need to talk about the tea, Austin.
Yeah?
The tea is it's ready to be spilled.
The plan T?
The plan T that may or may not have been taken. Now, I've got the documents.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
I've got the documents. So
you're gonna want to move your mic a little further from your face there. You're getting some plosives. All right.
I've got this right here. For our listeners, I've got this picture right here.
Oh, yeah, well, that'd be for the visual listeners. Or visual viewers, I guess. It's audio listeners.
For the audio listeners, I've got a document here that I'm going to be breaking it down. So we have right here Rhaenyra, who has been the mother of 2 children. We have Jace Valyrian, quote unquote, and Luke Valyrian, quote unquote. Now, in a Game of Thrones universe, hair has been a very important indicator of whose children is who, particularly color. But I think in this standpoint, you can come to reason that hair shape can also attribute. Because if we look at our boy over here, Luke, look at his hair. His hair matches a lot more like Sir Harwin Strong's hair right here. We've got the curls. We've got the volume. You've got that all. However, Jace has got the straight, more wavy hair, a little bit of curl, but not quite the same amount of curl that we have with Sir Kristen Cole over here. And
Guys, all right, audio listeners, I need you to pause this shit right now. Do a quick Google.
Are we going to post this on our socials? We might need to post this.
Perhaps.
So go check out the socials. You'll be able to see the audio here because as of right now, it is being insinuated that Sir Harwin Strong is the father to both Jace and Luke Valyrian. However, I put forth that we have the physical evidence right here on the form of hair that he is actually a Cole rather than a Strong.
Okay, but here's the only thing that I would counter with, because we are looking at a visual representation and these 2 kids look so similar.
Like it's the Targaryen looks. It's the Targaryen facial structures.
Okay. I mean, it could be enough, but to me, they read so similar that it's so hard to imagine that they don't come from the same double combo.
I will say this. The outcome of this conspiracy has no effect whatsoever on the story in any way, shape, or form. Because the fact of the matter is, I think it's safe to assume that these 2 children are technically bastards. However, I do want to have a conversation later on, but I'm putting forth that this might be our physical evidence right here, that Jace Valyrian is actually a bastard child of Sir Kristen Cole.
Could be. Huge if true.
Huge if true. And let me tell you, folks, I've got the documents right here to prove it.
Lovely.
Are you convinced, though?
I'll entertain it.
Entertain it. I'll take it because I know that I get a lot more excited on conspiracies and bought into it than some other council members at the table.
This being not the only context for that. But you want to get into it?
Well, where are we, Austin?
Well, welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie podcast. Today we are discussing House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 6, The Princess and the Queen.
Yes.
What's going on, Bryce?
Great episode. Just started up. The last 2 episodes have been a little dragon light. We made up for it in this. We got a lot of dragons.
Yeah, I want you to plot Like I want you to go through and we'll like rate each episode, and then I'm just gonna plot it against Dragon screen time one of these days and see if there's a true correlation.
I don't. The problem is the last 2 episodes, even though they were very Dragon light, they were still very good episodes. However, I think this is where it comes in the middle, where it's a very good episode and there's a lot of dragons.
It's a good one. And big pressure on this episode because it's a huge time jump.
Yes.
So this is 10 years on from the last episode, which it sounds like just a little cursory research that was like a huge deal for the production. Like this proposed time jump almost killed the show.
Well, I watched the behind the scenes. I know I watch like once every 5 episodes. It seems like
Checking in.
And they did say it felt like a pilot episode, and pilot episodes definitely can have a hit or miss. Like the Game of Thrones almost did not take off because apparently the first rendition of the pilot was so horrible.
Well, it's what you're saying though, that there's a lot of pressure on the pilot. So like regardless of like being a tone setter, it's there's just like a lot of moving pieces, and where this is like a kind of a reset, it's the most high pressure episode from that original pilot, no matter how you slice it.
Yes.
Which I it makes me think that, because this episode's directed by Miguel Sapochnik. I think I've said Schnick before, but I've seen some interviews that indicate that it's harder on the ch.
Austin, are you saying we mispronounce names on this podcast?
Listen, it's one thing to mispronounce a character's name in a show, a fictional character, especially since it's like basically a crapshoot, or even like a dragon's name. I know we're a dragon podcast, and I think that we want to put some emphasis on getting that right eventually.
Yes.
There's a difference for that versus an actual human person who may one day hear this podcast. And also like Miguel Sapochnik, open invitation to come on our podcast. I think that goes for like the highest executives involved with this series. So him especially, if he could have an opinion on this, like real life people, I don't want to offend. I feel like there's a baseline courtesy that I ought to extend.
Oh, I get that.
Anyway, hopefully I got that right. But he directed this episode, and I believe this is, I will double check this in a second while you're talking, but I believe this is the first episode that he has directed from the pilot. Oh, wow. So this seems kind of like their like safety guy. This feels like their guy that's like, okay, when this episode needs to land, we call in Miguel. What I mean, he's there all the time. He's one of the bigwigs, but yeah, for the director chair.
Well, the show starts off with time-skipped Rhaenyra. This is now Rhaenyra being portrayed by Emma Darcy. Am I getting that?
Yeah, that's how I've been saying it.
Emma Darcy. So.
Oh, wait. Because it's Emma for sure, but I think it's Darcy.
Darcy?
Darcy.
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 Like D'Angelo.
Okay, Darcy.
Yeah.
Okay. Emma Darcy. And I just want to first say, I think, and again, I know I already said this previously, but since we are actually officially here, I think they did a really good job with picking this actress to replace Millie Alcock. Like, she looks like legitimately an older version of Millie.
I'd be careful on your wording there, though, because the line is that they cast Emma and Olivia and Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook. They cast them first and then moved backwards.
Yes,
it's still an achievement.
Yes, but as a viewer, though, you're not viewing it like, yes, when we have the background information on that, obviously it makes sense. But as a viewer, if you didn't know that, you're seeing like Miley is the first actress we see. Millie is the first person we see. And Emma is the second actress that we see. And I feel like they did a very good job. Either way, they both complement each other. They look like...
the transition is really solid. And I do get kind of bothered by this when it's missed, particularly in a show like this where lineage and parentage is so important.
Yes.
And like it's even commented on, like the resemblance that children bear to their parents. It's a major plot point. I feel like this is an important thing for them to get right, and in both cases, totally. But there's another character that was aged up a little bit that we're gonna get to in a second, who not quite as
so we get a mess.
yeah. And that's of course in reference to Laenor. But
I mean,
I like his actor though.
Yeah, I like the actor. It doesn't seem like he matches too much for the younger actor that's been portraying him. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Rhaenyra's giving birth to a boy, Joffrey.
Wait, not yet.
Oh, that's true.
But so she's giving birth, and that's where the scene starts. We're right there.
And there's a part of me that just sort of has to respect the fact that House of the Dragon doesn't glamorize childbirth in any way, shape, or form throughout the show. Like,
are you saying that House of the Dragon respects women?
I think House of the Dragon might respect women.
I don't know if we're the authorities on that one. But I do appreciate the bold-faced approach.
Yes, like it's not the same as you see in a movie or a TV show where it's all like, I've straight up seen where people like have full on makeup when they're like holding the baby on. Like, I don't know how accurate that is. I've never given birth, but
No.
a shocker.
I'd say that acknowledgement of the fact of afterbirth is a colossal step toward realism in this case.
Correct. But after it's almost as if the servant was waiting outside of the chambers, because as soon as Rhaenyra gives birth to her child, the servant comes in and says the queen wants to see the child.
And this is a cool bit of direction, the way that they go about this scene, that I think makes that moment sting even worse. In that the first scene and then the scene after this, as soon as they leave this room, are each done in a oneer. So this very first scene where she's giving birth, I mean, it starts with her pushing, and it starts on her face, and we pull out, and it does the whole scene in one take, where the baby comes out, she gets the after, and then, I might be mixing up, but then like right away, like a matter of seconds, a servant comes in and then says, "Hey, the queen like demands to hold the baby."
Yes.
And for not breaking that shot, it really lands how instant that request was.
Like, I feel like it came before Laenor came in.
Was he second in line?
Well, I mean, I guess so. But Rhaenyra, clearly angry, clearly upset, starts to get ready to go see the queen, and her husband, the king consort to be, comes in, and I know that, again, we'll get more into it, but I do sense that even though like they don't necessarily love each other intimately, there is a love and respect that they have for each other. And I think we talked about it in the last episode, that there's clearly that they care for each other. And I think there's a couple times, like Laenor like does a really bad job of like understanding women.
That's his whole comment as they're walking out, where he's like, "Did it hurt? I'm glad I won't have to do that."
Yeah, like he's saying the wrong things, but I don't think like he's intentionally being an ass. Like, I think he's coming about it as an ignorant guy. Like,
sure. I will say that yes, there seems to be a level of respect there, and they seem to be on the same page about a lot of things.
Yes.
But everything about every interaction between them in this episode just screams platonic relationship.
Yes. And
by design, of
yes,
course.
of course. And we'll talk about the other conversations that they have, but I think there is a layer of stress that comes on in those late other conversations. This first conversation, Rhaenyra is obviously stressed, worn out, tired, exhausted from just giving birth and having to literally walk upstairs.
Well, it is a choice of hers to do that.
It is.
And we should dig into that. Geez, we have so many dragons to talk about, and it's a good episode.
Yes.
But this is one thing that I do want to drill into a little bit.
Yes.
So it's the request. Immediately, the queen wants to hold the baby, which is a transparent power play by Lady Alice or Alicent. What is she? Queen Alicent. Duh, my queen.
Queen.
Transparent power play. To request that so quickly, to like out of the womb, she's basically asking to be the first to examine it and hold the infant.
So I'm not going to argue that it's not a power play. I'm more curious. Do you think it's more of a power play though? Or is she Alicent, and again, we'll go into this more. Alicent is crazy. Like, she is a mad queen in her own right. She's not obviously like Cersei. She's not like how Dany was at the end of a Game of Thrones, but she's been mind broken. Like, she.
All right, Team Black.
No, hear me out. She's seeing everything Rhaenyra's doing as, and like, again, Rhaenyra's not innocent. She's far from it.
Rhaenyra sucks.
Okay, Team Green.
No, you talk. I'll get mine.
But I think it has more to do with she wants to see, okay, is she still not having sex with her husband? Is she like that?
Yeah.
I think that has more to do with it. She wants to be like, it's more to like just get more dirt on Rhaenyra. And again, Rhaenyra is very much like...
What's she doing, Bryce?
Bringing it on herself. She's bringing it on herself.
It's good to hear you say it.
Team Black all the way. I know where my allegiances lie.
Well, okay. So even if it's not like a malicious power play, because I think that it's both. But I what you're saying is that everybody's anxious to see what this third child from Rhaenyra ends up looking like.
Yes. I think that's more what it is rather than like Alicent purposely trying to have a power move over Rhaenyra, because technically, as we've seen in previous episodes, Alicent in the chart has more authority. Like, she was able to send the singer away when Rhaenyra was telling the singer to stay. She's literally wife to the king. Like, that she's got, like, yes, Rhaenyra will have the higher position eventually, but in this moment she has the position of power.
Yes.
So,
I mean, the fact that she can request that, clearly she has the trump card.
Exactly.
But Rhaenyra calls her on it by insisting on her personally, like, taking the baby to her immediately after having given birth.
Which is her own power move.
Totally. And so, again, that's where her and Laenor have their conversation. They're walking up the stairs. She's dripping all over. It's a big scene. But they get there.
Yes. And you can just see between the two that there is a seething hatred for each other that they have. Like, the time has not been
yeah, between Rhaenyra and Alicent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's only gotten worse. And I'm not saying that, like, it seems like they both have been adding to this. It's not like one or the other has been putting that towards. I also think, I don't know if you, like, when we see Viserys come in, he does not look like he aged 10 years.
He looks like a damn scarecrow.
He does not look good at all.
He looks like dried pigeon shit. mozzarella skin. Like it. The last 10 years look more like 100.
He looks like he could run for president of the United States.
This is our not a political podcast.
Not a political podcast.
We'll just let it lie.
But
he's still on his feet.
He's
a
still
miracle.
on his feet, and he's still smiling. He has
happy day.
He's a happy day, and that is when I know I jumped the gun, but when Laenor names the child Joffrey without consulting Rhaenyra.
Listen, I think it's I mean, that's shitty of him, but also, can he get one?
That's because
he doesn't even get the DNA in there.
And again, like at first I was thinking like you're right. Like I do think it's shitty of him to do that. But at the same time, like, not only is like he's tying his name to these boys, he's accepting them and not calling, like, again, I know this is part of their agreement, part of their arrangement, but not only is he like legitimizing them by calling them his own children, he's going to be giving his house's seat of power to Luke. Like Luke will inherit that. And that's not a small matter. Like he's essentially being like, again, shitty of him not to talk it over with Rhaenyra, but at the same time, I think it's a fair trade. Like one of the most powerful seats of power eventually for a thirdborn's name.
Granted, it is indicated in a later scene in this episode that he's kind of a deadbeat husband.
Yes.
He's a bit of a fuckboy and sort of just goofing around, pissing away his fortunes. Like, he's not exactly present for his duties here.
But the reason that they even got married wasn't because he was going to be an outstanding father. They got married because of his name, because of his position, and because Corlys wanted to have a Valyrian on the Iron Throne eventually.
Yep.
So it is what it is. And I have to say, again, I want to get through this some more. We have dragons to talk about, but one of my favorite things in this scene was when King Viserys is like, Laenor, he has your nose. And literally everyone just is like...
Everybody.
Like, looking around, like...
It's so... And this is... This is honestly my main thing with Rhaenyra, because this episode just dug me in so far against her, because it bothers me so much when it's just like a plain lie that nobody else can acknowledge.
I respect that, but again, and I know we're going to eventually have this conversation, so we'll just get this one over with. This is my thought process. Rhaenyra didn't want to marry Laenor, and Laenor did not want to marry Rhaenyra. They have that love for each other, but it's very much a platonic love. Is it really that hard of us to like force these two people that are being forced to marry each other when they're not wanting to be in this situation? Because like it's her, like what would you rather, like in this situation, would you rather them just be two celibate beings that are not, because they're not going to have sex with each other. Like Laenor clearly is not swinging for that team. Like,
yeah. And I think it's I won't say that because that's in a later episode, but it's just the stakes are so high, man.
They are.
And it's like, I'm not telling them that they shouldn't get their rocks off. Like everybody needs it, but oh geez, when it's gonna lead to literal war, like between nations, I think that I think we should have been brewing up a few more of those plan teas.
But that goes along the line. They have to have there has to be an heir. Like the line has to continue. That's part of
I'm not a doctor. What artificial insemination. When was that possible? What age? What year?
I'm going to go out on a limb, Austin. I believe they have to have test tubes invented by that point.
No. Listen, okay, Mom, if you're listening, you need to skip ahead a little bit. But like, turkey baster.
Okay, I mean, why not? I will give you this.
Podcast is over. That's it. Bryce has left the room.
You can follow us at Big Liz Pod. Yes. Is it shitty that Rhaenyra is lying and it's such a blatant lie? Yes. But on the flip side, I don't think if she wasn't expected to have heirs, I'm pretty sure she would just be taking, like.
Yeah, and I get it. I get it. But it's the way that everybody has to dance around it when it's such an open secret. And that's what it's revealed to be throughout this episode. Like, everybody knows. Every intelligent character who, besides Viserys, who has his own issues going on, knows exactly what's going on here.
Yes.
And that's the thing for my girl, Alicent, is she keeps coming back to like the Will Ferrell, I think I'm taking crazy pills thing, where like nobody else wants to acknowledge this obvious fact.
Well,
I sympathize with her. Like I see how she's ended up where she is.
I do sympathize, but I honestly believe that if it was the flip side, if it was Alicent in that situation and Otto was like, because she's like, oh, my father would have like, yeah, of course your father would have told Viserys that.
Yeah, well, if it was directly not to his goals, yeah.
No, that's the thing. Like, if it was not benefit Otto, Otto would not have said anything. Like,
yeah.
Like, that's the part, like, again, I understand Team Green over here. Like, you can't, I understand that it's hard to support Rhaenyra, but I don't have much sympathy for Alicent when she's sitting there at the dinner table like, my father would have told him right away. My father would have taken my side. Nobody's on my side.
Well, we've already established that all of your opinions about this show revolve around your hate for Otto.
It does. So I'm not even going to deny that.
I think I see what this is really about.
However, just because those opinions form for hatred of Otto doesn't mean they're wrong.
Yeah, Otto kind of sucks.
All right. So let's move on. And then I think.
All right. So that's half an hour into the record, and we're 4 minutes into the episode.
Excellent. So we end up in Rhaenyra's room, and in Rhaenyra's room we see Sir Harwin Strong, who announces that he is now the captain of the City Watch.
City Watch,
which was Daemon's position previously.
At one point, yes.
Yes. And we have Rhaenyra's two children, which we know is Jaharis and Lucas.
Just there's a C in there. Is that Jacares? Is that Jacares? Like Dracarys?
Possibly.
Jacaerys.
Jace is great.
Yes. There are a couple of little golden boys.
They are.
Not in hair, obviously. Notably.
Very notably.
But in action.
They're a couple of good boys. But Sir Harwin notes that he took them up from the dragon pits that they were so they could meet their brother. And again, I think I know we talked about how Laenor is sort of a deadbeat dad, but this entire time, it actually is moving to me that he's been holding the baby ever since they left the queen's rooms, and he's been sort of doting over the baby. Like it's a level of tenderness. Like, again, deadbeat dad. He's not like,
and he looks so good too. Like, he has like such good dad vibes in this scene, which again, we're not supposed to be like saying that he's the dad, but it's so transparent.
He's not the father, he's the dad.
That's it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, technically Laenor is the dad. So he holds the baby for a second.
Yeah.
Little Joffrey.
Yes.
And then basically when
Harwin.
I had that. When Harwin is like, "Can I hold the baby?" He's like, "Yeah, of course." Like, and just that's that. It's an open secret, and it drives me crazy.
Yes, I get that. I understand that. I'm not going to have the same conversation, but I keep.
I'm sorry. I won't circle back to it.
No, it's fine.
But it just runs through this whole episode.
What do we expect from them, though? Like, that's really what I'm going to keep asking. Like, really, what do we expect?
If this is the life that Rhaenyra wanted, then she should have run away with Kristen Cole in the last episode. She had her chance, and she said she chose duty, and then she didn't do it. Rhaenyra's just, you feel like she should have grown out of her rules don't apply whole thing.
Here's the thing. Yes, I am Team Black. I am clearly Team Black. I have very much criticized Rhaenyra in the past episodes and how she does not take her duties seriously. She is, and then she complains about it. Like, she doesn't do what she's supposed to do. And then she's like, "Oh, it's so hard to be the princess. It's so hard to be the heir." I'm like, no, it's not. You're not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. I'm glad that you acknowledge. And to be clear, like, none of that is at you. I'm just upset with the character.
No. The thing is, I am trying to come from a point where I understand the frustration. But at the same time, I also understand, at least from, maybe I'm coming this from Laenor's side. I'm defending Laenor. Like, we can't expect it.
He's got it made, man.
He's got it made. But, like, you really think he's going to be able to put a child in her?
Yeah. No, I mean, so that's a yeah of agreement, not a yeah of I could see it.
Yeah, because, that's it. Okay, is there anything else that we want to necessarily cover in this point?
No, I think we got it.
I will say this. Sorry, but just the intimate looks that they were giving each other, it sort of makes me mad that, again, do agree with you, that Sir Harwin Strong just didn't marry Rhaenyra. Like, I really think it would have solved a lot of, these problems. It would have caused a lot more problems with the Valyrians, but when Viserys was like, "Oh, Lionel, do you want your son the strongest knight?"
Yeah.
Like, it would have solved a lot of problems if Lionel was like, "Why not?"
Yeah, but as we know, the way it played out, that Rhaenyra was, she was with Cole when she got betrothed. And then that whole situation just
Harwin is the new and improved version.
Yeah, well, that's another note here that our your girl Rhaenyra has a type. And hey, listen, I get it. I'm like, if we're doing a hotness ranking here,
she has gone for the two hottest guys in the show.
The two hottest, and the next one is Corlys, which is like so impossible for her to get with. And totally age inappropriate, even by this show's standards.
Well, okay, so we go to the Dragonpit.
Yeah, we do.
At 1308, we get Vermax, which I personally loved Vermax. Like, just, you can tell that it's like a baby. It legitimately is like a baby dragon. Like, it's not even as tall as a horse. Like,
I'm gonna save some of my comments for because we'll do a dragon wrap up at the end as we do.
Yeah, as we do.
But the scene is really good.
Yes.
It's like really well lit. For CGI again, this whole like interior like shadow low lighting thing is really doing the CGI artist a lot of favors, and it's a cool scene, and that in this episode we get a lot more insight into like how a dragon rider like grows with their dragon.
Yes.
Not only because there's some info that we get about like sometimes the dragon egg that you're like you share a crib with doesn't hatch, and you can hang on to it and just hope forever that it does. And sometimes riders bond with a dragon later on in life. I mean, if their writer dies or if they didn't have one in the first place. And then here we get a glimpse at them as like,
Just
okay,
bonding.
so is it Jay?
Yeah, it's Jace.
Jace. This is him like bonding and like sort of training with his dragon.
Yes. In a Game of Thrones, we didn't really get, like, Dany didn't have, because they have this old tradition. I'm sure it's like passed down. They've got these dragon tamers that have probably studied how to help Targaryens bond with their dragons. Dany just was out in the middle of the woods, like, Jacais!
Yeah, figuring it out.
But so, I mean, it's cool that we're getting some of the lore on how they connected.
Did you catch up how messed up the one dragon dude's face was?
Yep.
Oh, geez.
He might have had a little bit of a run-in.
Occupational hazard.
And now I meant to look this up, but I'm not quite sure what colors House Strong is.
You want me to pull it up here?
If you don't mind pulling it up real quick, because I think this might have something, because both Jace and Luke are wearing the same blue tunics, while Aemond and Aegon are wearing Hightower green in there.
Okay. The House Strong of Harrenhal is a noble house from the Riverlands and a vassal of House Tully. Their sigil is 3 rivers, blue, red, and green, on white, flowing from a black... Yucatan? I'll edit that out. From a black, from a black shield displaying a white hand. But their colors appear to be blue, red, green.
Well, I put down that the blue that the Jason Luke are wearing is for Aaron blue, because House Aaron also has blue associated with them, which House Aaron is Rhaenyra's mother's house. However, if blue is associated with House Strong, it may be, again, just them flaunting.
Just a little subtle thing there.
Because both sets of brothers are wearing, like, the non-Targaryen house colors they are. But House Valyrian also is, there's all sorts of blues that these blues could be coming from. But, because I'm pretty sure House Valyrian is more of like an ocean blue rather than, but I'm getting too tied up with that.
I mean, it's an interesting, I think it's more likely not like their parents are dressing them in more like the show reinforcing
Yes.
what it has revealed.
Although I could see Lady Hightower.
Yeah. Well, after that last stunt, of course. Yeah.
She does not own anything that's not green anymore.
St. Patrick's every day.
So, they're training the dragon, and they're just pretty much asserting that he needs to have that dominance over it. And I think it is worth noting that they said that Prince Aegon mastered his dragon Sunfire right away, while Jace seems to have some struggles with mastering over Vermax.
Well, Rhaenyra speaks on says she's surprised that his egg ever hatched in the first place.
Alicent says she's surprised.
Oh,
Not Rhaenyra.
Interesting. That also makes sense.
He's still a Targaryen. It's not like he's not. He's just a bastard. And
anyway, he's struggling a little bit, but he gets it.
He gets it, and you can just tell that Aemond is just envious as hell. Like, he's sitting there, he's moping that he doesn't have a dragon. Like, we do find out he does not have a dragon. He's the only one of the princes there that does not have a dragon.
Even his little sister has a dragon.
Even the little sister has a dragon, but not.
Not poor Aemond. And they pull a little stunt about it.
They pull a little funny. They were trying to get some lols.
And here's the thing. It is objectively funny. I'm not one for practical jokes, and it's very mean, and I'm not for that. But pig with wings, always funny. The pink dread.
I was dying at that. Like, to be honest, like the best part is I feel like Daemon would have like died at that.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Because it's one homage to his dragon. Well,
no, because that's the black dread.
To Viserys, sorry. To Viserys. And
who would not find that funny in the least.
We'll talk about this later, but I have an interesting take on how he is with his sons.
Okay.
But,
his grand. Oh no, his son. Yep.
His sons. It looks like it's his grandson.
Yeah, he's never looked worse.
But Aegon, Luke, and Jace bust a gut. They are dying at the pink dread. Aemond is not amused whatsoever.
No, he hasn't learned to roll with it yet.
I don't think he's ever going to learn to roll.
See, that's the trouble. And it's like if he'd just done this right, he could have grown up and had a successful podcast. Could have developed a sense of humor.
I think he's got a little too much of that rich blood in him.
Yeah. Bullying is bad. Don't encourage it. Handle the situation if your kids are dealing with that.
Indeed. And he decides to descend into the actual dragon pit itself at that point.
Very bold.
I will say this. Aemond is a very interesting character to me. He is one of my favorite characters as the show goes along. I do agree with Aegon that he's sort of a twat.
Yeah.
But he is like one of my favorite characters. He does...
And even because I don't love the child actor.
No.
He's not going to stick around too long. It's fine. But the character, and this is something that I do think that he captures to some extent. The character has this cool confidence.
Yes.
To him, almost like that psychopathic quality.
Yes. Which he able is to like essentially stare down at, like, because he goes down there. I first of all find it weird. There's like wind down in the tunnels. Like, I don't know if that's from the wings of the dragon, but they're
I don't know, man.
But we come across, and at 1724 we meet, it's not named, but Dreamfire being Helena's dragon,
his little sister's
dragon. And it was so dark. I couldn't get any colors from what the dragon is like.
And we discussed that, like, let's just do it here.
Okay.
Because like Rhaenys dragon, whose name slips me.
Malaise.
You know that one. We really don't get enough here to like do a full breakdown. So we'll just say it looks like kind of like a classic Game of Thrones style dragon.
Yes.
It's a mother dragon.
Yes.
The book describes it as a light pale blue, but here it just looks like a muddy gray. It is kind of a cool shot when it's like gurgling the fire, like it's about to let loose there. It's like a cool shot, but it doesn't really tell us anything about the creature.
No, and I think it tells us more about Aemond than it does about Dreamfire.
Yeah.
So Aemond takes off running, and I do think it's interesting that Dreamfire doesn't cook, because typically dragons, like especially in the book of A Game of Thrones, if anybody comes to the dragons that's not really associated with the dragons, they get toasted. Like,
it's like what the Dragon Master says. It's like once you bonded with the dragon, it'll only listen to the one human.
Yes. But instead it just scares him off. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. It like shoots the fire at the ceiling for some reason, but maybe it just respects the hair.
It knows.
Yeah.
Which we go to Princess Helena's room at that point. And right off the bat, we know that Helena has an interesting obsession with bugs.
Yeah. She's giving me big spoon kid from the Matrix energy.
See, I was getting Luna Lovegood.
That too, yeah.
Like a depressed version of Luna Lovegood is what I was picking up.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that just is like dying because Alicent is just sitting there like, she clearly loves her daughter, but she's like, you can see on her face, she's like, you're so weird. Like, what are you doing?
He's like, and just on top of all of it, I got this weirdo.
Like all her kids are weird. Like every single one of them are weird in their own.
Oh, we didn't say before, but not just with the pink dread, but the lead up to that scene. That's our glimpse of Aegon just being a total shit.
Oh yeah,
throughout this episode, because he's like yawning as they bring out his nephews.
Yeah,
his nephew's dragon.
Yeah, he's clearly the most silver spoon out of them all. Like in my opinion.
Yeah,
and he has a lot of energy that matches another prince that was a pampered and eventually becomes, well, a pampered prince.
Yeah.
But Aemon's dragged in by Sir Westeling.
And so the takeaways here are his mom, Alicent's like, again. So it's revealed that this isn't the first time, and that it seems like it's kind of an obsession of his that he doesn't have a dragon. Like he does not have a sense of humor about it.
No.
And the other thing...
He doesn't have a sense of humor at all.
Totally absent. And then there's a quick little bit where Helena's like, he'll have to close an eye to get a dragon. And again, Spoon Kid from the Matrix vibes. Like, is this chick clairvoyant? What's going on here?
Okay. I try to stay away from the book that are outside of A Song of Ice and Fire. But supposedly one of the very first Targaryens had visions and dreams, and she dreamed of the fall of Valyria, and that was actually what got the Targaryens to leave Valyria before the fall. And even though it's not confirmed in the books, it's alluded that Helena has some of these dreams and visions similar to that ancestor. Again, not confirmed, but
interesting. And that's something that Viserys has spoken on, that members of their family, their lineage, do have visions of the future.
And that's why he's so dedicated to all the visions that he's had. That's the whole reason he was pressuring Emma to have a child, because he knew he was going to have a son, because he had a prophetic dream, thinking that was going to be the case. Which he does have sons, but not with Emma.
Yeah.
Well,
no, he does.
That survived.
Yeah.
But anything else that you want to go over with this?
No, we got to keep moving.
All right. So we go to the king's room. And the king has been printing more miniatures.
he has an assistant.
He needs an assistant because he needs a right hand. Or is it a left hand he needs? I don't know which.
Yeah, 10 years. It's I wouldn't be surprised if he's lost a couple more digits since then.
Well, no, he lost an arm.
What?
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
He is missing an arm. Like it doesn't become obvious until the whole scene of him sitting down and it's Lionel resigning, and we'll get to that eventually, but it's very obvious he is missing his arm at that point.
Gee, see, this is a rewatch. I know that happens, but yeah. I totally missed that. Okay, so Viserys is not in good shape.
Not in good shape, but he's still sticking with his hobby. Which I appreciate.
And it would have been a left hand for what that's worth.
Yes. And right off the bat, right off the bat in this scene, Alicent is telling the king about what has been going on with Rhaenyra's children and Aemond. She's blaming the entire thing on Viserys' children, calling them menaces and just completely trying to bash them. And I was laughing again. It's a little sad, but Viserys is like digging at Aemond like during this. He's like that he needs to be more of a child. Like he's not a child. Like he's
weird.
He's weird. And I think this all comes to, and again, like, I don't think he clearly doesn't, like, he loves his children. I'm not doubting that, especially with just how much he pushes trying to have them get along. But I definitely do feel like he has a love for Rhaenyra that he doesn't share for his other children. And
Yeah, that seems to track to me. And I mean, he has big dad energy in this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, later when he's like, "Look at the boys playing," I think he goes, "This is the stuff." He's like, they're gonna be friends forever, don't you? Right?
Lionel's like, oh.
But I think that's just like. Every parent has their favorite, and well, more often than not, it's the oldest. We're both oldest children.
We're both oldest, both experimental.
The premier child of our respective clans. Okay. I'm my mom's favorite. We don't have to dig into it.
Mama Snyder, comment below. Is this true or not?
She's not going to make it to episode 6. We can relax, okay?
You said, but okay, we're not.
That is this episode's notable first, though. I should say that this is a bit of a peek behind the curtain. This is the first episode that we are recording after the podcast has debuted. Very exciting, and also, yes, for us, clap, clap, clap. We're being so responsible, establishing a backlog. But especially to anyone who's made it this far from our initial push, means the world. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And also, I've acknowledged this to the people, but just it's been cool that people have actually checked it out and been really supportive. So
yeah.
Exciting.
It is. And
the other thing to say there is, if any of you have been screaming at us and dropping all these raging comments, we have not been able to respond to them till this very moment, at least on mic. So joke's on you.
You have to wait a few weeks. That's our trick, Austin. We get our haters to have to push through 6 more episodes for us to respond to them at all.
That's the brilliance. That's the master design. That was our intention from the very beginning. We discussed it, did we not, Bryce?
We have a whole blackboard of our evil plan.
So on that point, though, when we're covering season 2, we will be very current.
Yes.
So if you want to get a hold of us more immediately, we will receive the hate on a quicker timeline there.
Yep.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about how Alicent is starting to be insinuating to the king. It's you have to know.
Yeah, she says, I think to him, to have one child like that is a mistake, but to have 3 is an insult.
Yes.
I agree. Because you spoke on a matter of duty earlier.
Yes.
You need 1, you need a backup. 3's really pushing it.
Yes. I can't keep making the same defense, so I'll just...
I'm not calling you a Rhaenyra defender, because I feel like you have accommodated me plenty on that front. It's just, again, I'm very frustrated with the character in this episode. Wrap it up, people.
That story that he tells about the horse, I was come on.
It's such a Viserys move.
It is.
But it is kind of encouraging, though, where he gives some indication, he's not blind to it. He gives Alicent an inch in this scene.
Yes.
In basically saying one, not denying her, but more so saying the repercussions of this are so insane we can't even entertain the conversation. It is not acceptable for this to be a reality.
Yes. I think that's the part that Alicent, again, Team Black over here, but Alicent doesn't think about consequences. She only thinks about giving out consequences. She doesn't seem to grapple, and I will make note of it, of something that happens more towards the end of the episode.
Okay, fair.
But Alicent leaves the king's room with Sir Criston Cole, who seems to be Alicent's very personal Knight of the Seven.
Oh, he has switched hard.
He has, and he's still hot as hell. Like,
But he's cut the hair.
he's cut, just like Samson. He cut it.
I'll just say this now, though. Criston Cole's hair, chopped it off, and I lamented. But Daemon, back with the long silky look, baby, and I am 100% down. So fair trade.
We're getting ahead of ourselves there, but we're almost to that.
I'm just so excited about it. Criston Cole, I mean, what's his? He has the Fabian Frankel. Guys, remember, because he has
Fabian.
He's looking good. He can pull them both off, but I did prefer the long hair. Anyway, he has hard switched to Alicent. I mean, she pulled him out of that his suicide attempt,
yes.
and it seems like from that day, the most pivotal day in Criston Cole's life, he has lived to serve Alicent and hate Rhaenyra.
Well, again, touching what we talked about last week, I think he's trying to rebuild his, like, for Cole, he's trying to build back his honor, and his only way to build back his honor is to serve the woman who pulled him out of the darkest time that he has ever been through. So Criston Cole is going to be the most loyal soldier.
I don't doubt it.
To Alicent.
I wrote down his line, though, that he says about Rhaenyra, which I'm a little hesitant to repeat. 1 second here. The Princess Rhaenyra is brazen and relentless, a spider who strings and sucks her prey dry. She's spoiled. And then he uses another choice word. But
yes.
Damn, bro. Still salty.
He needs to
10 years on, and he has not lost any of that bitterness.
It's a love story in and of itself. It just showing. He got red pilled pretty hard.
Yeah. I mean, we've said he's old fashioned.
Yes.
Jeez.
And
he does apologize for it.
Yes.
To his credit.
Yes. And there's two lines that I felt like were pretty significant in here. I think Alicent is the one who said she flaunts her privilege of her inheritance without shame. And again, like, that's probably the most accurate depiction of what Rhaenyra has been throughout the entire series. Like, that's...
I agree.
However, Alicent has a child who does the very same thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And...
So is that the next scene?
Well, the next scene... Well, no, sorry. The last thing is, there it said honor and decency will prevail, which...
She says she hopes.
Which is ironic because I think the moral of this story is there is no honor and decency on either side. Both sides are devoid of honor and decency, as we'll come to talk about.
They're certainly both compromised. It's a matter of comparison, not to any higher standard, but to each other.
Yes. Which that takes us the honor and decency will prevail.
Hard cut.
To Aemond pulling a Roman from the succession, making the bald man cry, standing in the window.
Joking the bishop.
Butt naked. And here's the thing. I don't know what's more weird. Is it more weird that Alicent didn't knock coming into the room, or the fact that she was just standing there, like, which sort of insinuates that she was watching for at least a moment, because she was legitimately just standing there.
It's weird having the queen as your mom.
Yes.
She seems so, like, totally unfazed by it too, which
Yes.
just further proves that Aegon 2 is a total shit. And this kind of behavior is not at all out of the ordinary.
Honor and decency will prevail.
Well, we can hope.
This is her honor and decency that she is.
Fair point. But alas, she does make an effort to knock a little sense into him.
Well, first she asks whose idea was to do the pink dragon.
Which clearly it was his.
I don't know if it's so clearly, but I do think it was his, but I don't think it's really up in the air because, and this is the only reason I'm pushing back. Normally, when you're put in a situation like Aegon is put in.
Dude, it did occur to me, and I was just really hoping, I loved your opening for what it was, but especially because it wasn't a conversation about getting caught.
That's for the Patreon viewers.
It's not. Just I motioned to the video, but I want that very clear.
But he's very flustered in that moment, and I don't think sure he could very much lie in that moment.
You're saying. I don't know. It really doesn't matter.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because, he even said, Aemon's a twat.
Yeah, but then Alicent tries to set him straight, and she's like, "Listen." She basically does a version of the conversation that Otto has with Alicent in the previous episode.
Abusers abuse. The abused becomes the abuser.
But she's spitting facts though. In both instances.
So was Otto.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, continue.
Where she sets him straight. She's like, "You are going to grow up. The king is going to die. This is the line of succession, and it's going to be contested. And to shore that up, Rhaenyra will probably try to kill you. And so, at the very least, you need to make good with the established line of succession."
Now, we already had the big conversation last week about it, but again, self-fulfilling prophecy. If they would have at least come to an agreement, I think this all could have been avoided. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
I think it's. I mean, by the time it was last episode, the ball was too far rolled.
But again, that's on Alicent. Again, I know that Rhaenyra's actions are causing Alicent to do this. But if Alicent decided to be the bigger person rather than descend, because again, at this level, they're at the same level. I will give you, Alicent has acted more nobly and respectfully. But the fact that she's taking the side, no, we are going to usurp Rhaenyra, is putting.
I mean, that's not what she's saying in this scene, but what you're pointing out is she's not doing the opposite, which would be an equally valid path to take.
Yeah.
Where, publicly, yeah, she's like, yeah, I mean, this is the heir, but her heart's not in it. She's not doubling down. She's not going out of her way to make that known. And that could be one way to avoid a slaughter.
It's not just Rhaenyra's fault. I'm just going to say that there.
No. 70%.
70%. But that takes us to 2510.
Is it Caraxes?
Where we see Caraxes flying, doing a little bit of a show.
He's doing an X-wing formation. Did you catch it?
Yes.
It's a cool shot. It's like a nice way to display his design.
Mm-hmm. And they're putting on a show for the Pentos royals.
That's what was happening there.
Yeah, because that's.
I thought they were just flirting.
No. Yeah, I really think that they were putting on a show for the Pentos.
No, that makes total sense.
But then at 25:22, we get our first look at the largest known dragon in existence, Vhagar.
I'm worried that the discussion of this character, this dragon, is going to take half an hour at the end of the episode. So we just want to leave it at that.
Yes. Look.
Vhagar shows up. Moving on.
She a big girl.
She big. She big, thick.
And it's Laena who's riding Vhagar.
Hasn't she done well for herself?
She's done very well. Up. And I will point out, she is the one who's brought up, she was the one who was asking where Vhagar went back in episode 2 or 3.
That's right.
She was very curious as a child. And
she set her sights on one of the biggest dragons, and She made it happen.
She made it happen.
And not just that, but you say that they're performing, they're doing an aerial, and she real pregnant.
Yes.
With whose baby?
Daemon's.
Oh,
Daemon's.
how about that?
The baby daddy. Which takes us into the dinner with Prince Rhaegal.
Who?
The Pentos.
Yeah.
Prince Rhaegal.
Okay, I did not catch his name earlier. That's all.
I'll be honest, I watch with subtitles just so I can catch that, because there's so many times that names just get like flashed in and out.
I should start doing that.
I'm surprised, like, never mind.
My girlfriend is like, and she's like really hardline, wants the subtitles on. Like, if we go to a movie, we don't have a choice. Like, it's not going to ruin the experience for her, but she cares about having them on more than I care about having them off. So it's kind of like when I'm watching for my own, I'm like especially inclined to keep them off.
Which is funny because you prefer sub over dub for the most cases.
Well, when it comes to anime, yes, because I feel like that's a truer representation of the artist's intent.
Fair.
But I also do find it a little distracting. Like if I ever one day get around to learning another language, like a top 3 reason for me to do that is so I can watch the films without subtitles.
Deal.
But still, I think you're wise, and especially where this is a rewatch. That's actually a thing with my girlfriend, because we watch a lot of movies together. So, like, whenever I'm showing her one of my favorites, it's actually kind of a cool experience to rewatch it with the subtitles on.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, I've seen Pulp Fiction 20 times, but never with the subtitles on. Sometimes you catch like a little turn of phrase or this or that. I digress.
Background noises that are going on. But the food is exquisite. I think they make a very much of an effort to show like how magnificent the food
Looks
is.
yummy.
Mm-hmm. And it's also worth noting the people of Essos, which is where Pentos is, there are several, like there are very, very wealthy people over here. Like this, so they're trying to flaunt their wealth to the Targaryens, to the Westerosi. And they do even a toast to Aegon the Conqueror, who came and helped out, which you have to. Like he's the biggest and the baddest. And they also mentioned that they have 3 dragons in this conversation.
Yeah.
Which obviously, Laena, Daemon, and then one of the daughters has a dragon, but not the second.
Yes. I mean, that's we don't have to drill into it more. That's the one that I mentioned before, that her egg just never hatched. And I think they mentioned that she's 8 and
Yes.
still waiting on it, but
Still get it waiting for her letter to Hogwarts.
yeah.
But the Pentos Lord, the Pentos Prince, offers an entire amount of gold, an amount of land, people to pay taxes if they are willing to stay and essentially protect trade and protect the people around.
Yes, because it has it has been revealed that apparently there's still an ongoing conflict with the Triarchy.
Well, the Triarchy not only have come back, but they've got Dorne involved.
With a vengeance.
Mm-hmm. And Daemon seems really interested in this, while Laena does not seem interested in this at all.
No.
In this deal. Even at the conversation, but it does translate where they are talking with each other in a study. And it does show that Daemon is teaching his daughter, I believe Valyrian, when Laena comes in.
And this is something that I get from these first couple scenes with Daemon, is that Laena, correct?
Yes.
Seems to have mellowed him out quite a lot. I mean, he's kind of living large. He seems pretty chill. Like he's got everything that he could want. He's a dad now. The hair is back. like his whole like new persona has gone away.
Hot boy summer came to an end.
Yeah. So and you get that in this, like it's a weirdly kind of tender thing from Daemon. So reading from those scenes, to me, it indicates that the last 10 years have softened him.
Yes.
And
for the better.
yeah.
No, I definitely like. We still get some of that Daemon sass throughout.
Oh, that dragon energy is not like you cannot extinguish it.
No,
But alas,
but they are talking about how Daemon wants to stay. Laena doesn't want to.
they're going over the offer. Yeah.
And Laena really wants to go back to Driftmark, at least to have the child and to raise their children in the Valyrian ways. And Daemon seems very motivated to stay away from Westeros, from politics. And even a line that Laena says later on is that it's not necessarily that he's afraid, but he's done putting up with the politics of Westeros, which, truth be told, I don't blame.
Yeah, and it goes along with what I was just saying about he seems, for Daemon, pretty happy right where he's at. Like, why would he want to mess that up?
Like, he's over there. He's reading about his family history. He's being offered gold to literally just ride his dragon around and like.
Oh man, is that not the dream?
Just read all day, ride your dragon at night, and get paid mountains of gold. And it's not like where they had their manse was not a shabby spot either.
Not at all. Not at all.
But Laena is quite determined. She's a little angry, and she does mention that when she's going over all these, that she wants to die a dragon rider's death, not die in comfort. Or
and that'll probably come back later.
No, what are you talking about? It's not going to come back at all.
No.
But Daemon doesn't seem phased at all. Like when she's walking away, he just goes back to reading.
He's like, that's nice, dear.
Like, where was I? But
does that take us back to Westeros?
that takes us back to the Red Keep training yard.
Oh, yes. This scene.
There's a lot in this scene.
My frustration extends to Cole as well.
Cole is definitely not innocent in any stretch of the imagination. And it is funny. All the princes are getting trained. And I want to point out, they're both watching, like, Lionel and King Viserys are watching both of their grandkids. Like,
Yeah.
Jace,
Everybody knows.
Jace and Luke are the grandkids to the king in the hand of the king.
That hadn't occurred to me in the scene. I was just thinking about how Lionel was looking, especially Orson Wellesy in this scene.
Yes.
But this is where he's like, oh, yeah, look at them go. They're going to be lifelong friends.
And Lionel's like...
And in the first half of this scene, the big takeaway for me is that Aegon, too, did not take his mother's advice seriously at all.
No.
Because they arrange it so that the two oldest boys are going to spar.
Yes.
That'll be Jace and Aegon.
Yes.
And obviously Aegon has the advantage. Like he's got what, 5-6 years on him.
At least.
Longer.
And he's like almost playing with him. Like,
yeah. But then, and before long, he just gets to like wailing on him. Like not to actually hurt him, but he does not pull any punches.
Well, Jace comes back and actually, like, in Jace's defense, like, Jace...
Yeah, in Aegon's defense, you mean?
Well, no, in Jace's defense, he comes in and he's, like, wailing on Aegon a little bit, like... Because I think Aegon was just treating it as, like, a joke almost, like... He sees the game that Cole is... He sees what Cole has set up, and he's knocking the dominoes down just to come in and beat up on a little kid. And Jace comes in and he starts
I'm just saying a better seed, someone with a better soul than Aegon might have been able to take this the route that Viserys was hoping for.
Oh, for sure.
And create a bond rather than further creating a division.
I will say this. At one point, I don't remember if it was Aegon or if it was Aemond. I think it's Aemond who does it, but they do the whole shoulder check on little Luke. Like, little Luke is like... He has to be like 7 or 8 at this point in time. Like,
but clearly strong does not. Geez, why can't I remember his name? Harwin. So clearly Harwin is not feeling this arrangement, and
No.
he calls Cole out on this, and Cole points out that he seems particularly interested in how the training is going of the princess's children.
Yeah.
And usually that kind of care and concern would be reserved for a family member, perhaps. And
a cousin, a brother, a son.
Oh, it's a delicious read by Fabian on that one.
Yes. Which Strong goes into a rage.
This is where it comes back to Rhaenyra's type comes back to bite her. And that you get with a bro, it has its advantages. He's a great dad, but this is not a man you can. I wouldn't trust this guy with this level of a secret to stay cool.
Because he just starts wailing and he kicks Cole's ass.
Cole lets him, though.
He does. But he still gets his ass kicked.
Yeah. And it's kind of recalling the end of the last episode. Yeah, you might recall with Cole wailing on Joffrey, not baby Joffrey, but the Night of Kisses.
Yes.
Night of Kisses. That sounds like something else.
Well, that's why he had the name.
Yeah.
But
so basically, this is everything short of him coming out and saying, "Yes, they're my sons."
Yes.
Which is what Cole was hoping to provoke.
Oh, for sure. And I do want to point out again, it's like the only time that Viserys was like really getting emotional is he was like yelling down at Aegon when Aegon was like being a sort of a little shit towards Jace during the duel. But other than that, he doesn't really like, he doesn't scream at Harwin. He doesn't scream at Cole. He only screams at Aegon, which again, to me just shows that he has like not quite the same level of love.
Yeah, you can feel that in this scene too. That reinforces your point.
Yeah, it's just something I noticed. But this next scene I think has some very significant ramifications in it.
Between Laenor and Rhaenyra, or am I skipping ahead?
Well, first, Rhaenyra is told that Harwin attacked.
Yeah, she gets the news.
And so she takes one of the secret passages that she knows about to where I assume she meets up, like her regular spot where she meets Harwin. And she comes to find Harwin having a conversation with Lionel. And Lionel is going in on Harwin.
Although it did bring me some solace for him to, because again, that's my statement up top, is like every intelligent character knows exactly what's going on. So for him to call out his son on his indiscretions, very satisfying.
Yes. And you have to feel for Lionel because he is in such a hard spot as well. Like,
and I love my boy Lionel. I want the best for him. Why does he have such difficult sons? Or sons who make such difficult choices?
Great hand of the king. Not a great dad.
I think he's being pretty fair in this.
He's being
this
fair.
Case.
But how his sons ended up being, that's the point.
Yeah, the rearing part.
Yes. But Lionel all but like, I'm pretty sure he calls out Rhaenyra. I know he does. He brings up this like the sons, like his sons, and
yeah, and then he's like he says something to Harwin says something to the effect of like, you have your honor, I have mine, and that's kind of the end of the conversation. But is it revealed here or later that he has been dismissed as head of the City Watch.
It's later.
Okay.
It is later, and Rhaenyra seems to go back to her room at this point, which you could hear very faintly at first, but slowly growing louder. Drunken singing.
Yes.
Coming in. And eventually Lionel comes in. Not Lionel.
Laenor.
Laenor comes in drunk off his ass. Like,
I think he's fun to go drinking with.
I'm sure he's a party to go drinking with. And he is with Sir Carl.
Weirdest smelling of Carl I've ever seen.
Yes. And just what he's saying to Rhaenyra.
Oh,
Like,
but so this is I do want to spend 30 to 60 seconds on what he mentions here. Do you know about this character?
which one?
So we're not book readers, at least not the Fire and Blood. But this guy that he mentions with the giant with the purple beard
Oh, yes.
who dresses in women's clothing.
Yes.
So do you know about this guy?
I do not.
All right. So this is pretty clearly a reference to a character named Ricalio Rindoon, who is mentioned many times in the books. He's like a I believe a leader of the Triarchy. And just a quick glance on his Westeros wiki page is quite the ride. All right. So, I mean, he mentions that he's like flamboyant and that he dyes his beard purple.
Yes.
This mentions that he also does orange streaks
Okay.
in the beard. That he took baths in perfume. That he was fond of dressing as a woman and pretended to be a whore in the city dockyards.
Okay.
Hence his nickname, Queen Ricalio. OG drag queen. How about it? Like, where's this guy's spin-off series? But wait, there's more. The wiki states that he was a man of extreme contradictions because he loved pregnant women but hated children, loved kittens but hated cats, had sex with both men and women, and took multiple wives, though it was said he enjoyed having his wives hit him during sex. No shame in it. He was a great warrior, but he was also out of combat a gluttonous drunkard. He was surprisingly well educated and spoke High Valyrian. And a dozen of its vulgar dialects. There's more, but like this guy,
he sounds like the most straightforward guy in the show so far.
Ricalio Rindoon.
That's awesome.
That's my next order. That's the one that I want to see next.
That is awesome.
5 episodes. That's all I ask.
But he talks about him, and and you can tell Laenor misses war. Like, he's a warrior, he's a fighter. He wants to go back to war.
The way he is in this episode, you almost forget that. And it's part of it's the time jump, the switching of the actor, because again, this is the one that doesn't really match the younger actor to the older actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he was in the Step Zones for years. He saw a great victory there. He rode his dragon into battle. So
Yes.
it makes sense, especially after 10 years of inebriation.
And also, I'm sure it has something to do where he can just go out there and he doesn't have to pretend to be married to a woman out there. Like,
Yeah.
and it gets to a point where Rhaenyra is like, "Are you mad?" like she's just listening to him, and eventually just calls him out and essentially reminds him, like, "Hey, we're in a dangerous spot. Like, our sons are in danger. We are in danger." And
on that point, though, I want to make special note where she points out. I want to make special note that she says that there are sorry, I should have written down the whole quote, but essentially she uses the term vile accusations. Like there are vile accusations about the parentage of our children.
Yes.
And her reading on this line really stood out to me in that she says it with utmost confidence. Like it just really slides out of her lips, when it was that same term that sort of caught her up in episode 4, the conversation Rhaenyra had with Alicent, where she's like, she's confronted about Daemon. She's like, this is a vile accusation.
She's believed the lie.
And that's part of this episode is I feel like Rhaenyra thinks she's getting away with it. At the very least, up until this newest kid.
Well, I think it's up until this instant she thinks she's getting, like, up until she heard Lionel talking with Harwin. I'm pretty sure she's like, nobody even knows.
Jeez.
And it's sad because she's trying to get a reality check to Laenor. And again, we said that he's a deadbeat dad, more in the sense that he seems to be doing what he just came back doing quite often. He's going off with all of these knights, swinging his sword around, as Rhaenyra puts it, getting drunk, and then coming back at, like, just not really in the picture. That's more or less like what we're getting from Laenor here. And Rhaenyra is really wanting Laenor to be supportive. He wants her to be present, especially when things are getting this rough. And
he's not into it.
Laenor, yeah, it's not what he wants. Like, this wasn't part of the, well, he thinks it's not part of the arrangement. Like,
yeah.
And
I don't have much else on the scene.
No, I don't really either. It's just, I think they're really trying to build this up. And which takes us back across the sea to Pentos.
Sure.
Where Laena is talking with his daughter, and this is the scene that we keep referring to, where she's holding the dragon egg, trying to hope that it hatches, but we know it's not going to. And the only other thing that I think that is really worth mentioning that we haven't talked about is that Daemon appears to ignore this child. Like, she makes a comment that Daemon ignores her, and it's just sad.
It is sad, but it's also not surprising from Daemon to learn that he is not an ideal father. Yes. I mean, his presence at all, the fact that he gave this new wife children, that's some weird phrasing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Is kind of big for him, but he also just doesn't feel like, nothing we've seen from him in this show tells me that he's like going to be a good present father. I mean, to the contrary, like, it's been this episode where we've seen an element of that expressed in him.
Which, there's something I want to touch in that actually gets cut out of the show, but we'll talk about it because it's something that gets cut out later on in the show. But we go outside, and Daemon is out, and Laena's coming up, and she tells her, she tells Daemon that Laenor wrote to her about how a son has been born, and even Daemon, who's not in King's Landing, is like, does this child have an uncanny resemblance to Sir Harwin Strong?
He knows. Yeah.
Everybody knows. And she's like, I miss Laenor. I want to, and like, pretty much bringing the conversation back up. And Daemon swerves that conversation hard, like, does not want to talk about it. He does not want to leave.
It's interesting how this is sort of paralleling what Rhaenyra is going through in this episode.
Yeah, it's very similar in a lot of ways to what's going on there. It's
so just occurred to me. Does he not engage with that kid as much because she doesn't have a dragon?
I think that's the insinuation.
That's what it's got to be.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to backpedal a little bit, but yeah.
And yeah, I think that that's what it is. Like, she doesn't have a dragon. You need to have a dragon if you're a Targaryen.
Are you even a Targaryen?
Exactly. But Laena keeps pressing Daemon that she wants to go back, and it even comes up that she insinuates that Daemon doesn't love her anymore. And
I feel like there's love between them though.
Oh,
like even you see it as she's like approaching. He has like a big grin on his face.
well, that's the thing. Like, I do agree with that, but she says something along the lines of like, your feelings for me changed long ago. And that's when Daemon's like, Laena, like the whole babe, really? And she's like, I'm not mad. I'm acknowledging it. And I just want to do something that, like, I want to do something for me. Like, we've been doing stuff for you. I want to do something for me. And that's sort of the end of the conversation there.
Which takes us to what?
Our small council meeting number 1.
Orbs up, and guess who's got them? Alicent and Rhaenyra, both seated on opposite sides of the king there.
Yep.
Yeah, and with orbs.
With
orbs. If
orbs.
that wasn't clear. I don't know what they are masters of. Yet I think it's a different orb than Rhaenyra had the last time we saw her in a small council meeting. But
It almost was black.
like her heart.
But
Or her team.
I just want to bring up the first thing they were talking about is about the Brackens and the Blackwoods.
Yeah, we know about that now.
They're still going at it, and Alicent was pretty much saying, "Hey, they're subjects to Lord Tully. Let Lord Tully handle this." But Rhaenyra is like, "Let's talk to the small folk. They'll give us an answer." And Alicent is like very obviously like showing her exasperation for being like undercut there. And
although in this scene, and maybe it's Rhaenyra like laying it on thick because she's a little bit in trouble over her latest child.
yes.
But she like really seems to be staking her claim in this scene and like making her voice known.
Yes.
Like power wise, just based on this one scene alone, she's reading a little stronger in the small council setting.
Yes.
And there is kind of you see it in the positioning of the council, but we've already established that officially Alicent seems to have more power than Rhaenyra.
Yes.
But I think that it's insinuated in this scene that they still have equal-ish sway on the king.
So this is my perception, my idea of what's gone on. Corlys was a very big personality on the small council, and he left, leaving sort of a void for Otto, who also had a very big voice.
Kind of like how Corlys left a void by not appearing in this episode.
Yes, a void in my heart.
My only con. That's my only criticism.
Other than all your criticism of Rhaenyra.
No, that's not criticism of the show. I love it. It has me invested. I'm saying it's an objective mistake to not have any Corlys.
But Otto left. When Otto gets removed from the council, I think Rhaenyra sees that she has power and influence, and that really let her, like, I'm sure, again, I'm putting a lot of assumptions in, but I think this is sort of how she's been throughout the years. She stepped into that role that Corlys and Otto had, where they had a lot of personality, a lot of sway, a lot of voice coming into these council meetings, because she feels like she was having a lot of power there. And they bring up that the Stepstone, like, they get the news that the Stepstones are at war again. And Rhaenyra is very much like, we should have been prepared for this. We should have had armies there. It's not on Daemon. It's not Daemon's fault. Like, because I do think it's pretty shady on their part to say that it's Daemon's fault that all this happened. But like, what did they really want Daemon to do? Like, they didn't give Daemon land. They didn't give
No,
like,
no, and I'm inclined to believe Alicent when she's like, we would have done that if we had the funds, but apparently it wasn't a priority.
and again, Team Black over here.
Really?
I'm inclined a little bit with Rhaenyra, where they're like, they're suffering the consequences because they didn't do anything. Like, again, I understand you can't spend all your money just completely militarizing that over there, but you know that that's a spot that's been hit, and just completely leaving there and like leaving it completely abandoned just seems a little folly. Like, you
Well, especially all after all the expenditure to get where they did with it.
exactly, like, Rhaenyra very much, I think, is justified in saying, like, the cost of war is more than the cost that.
Yeah.
And that's the only point. But the meeting seems to be adjourning because Alicent is getting sick of Rhaenyra.
Again, that's her expressing some power.
Yes. And Rhaenyra undercuts that again by saying that she has something to talk about. And she proposes that Jace marries Helena. And I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on this, because even though I get where Alicent's coming from, like, she sees this as a bastard child, it's a legitimized child. Like, whether it's
Yeah. And this is sort of to your point, like, this is an off-ramp for her.
Yes.
Like, this is an opportunity to, like, shore things up. And it's like, okay, well, if they're married, then, like, she's not going to kill Helena. I mean, Helena's not, like, in line for the throne in any stretch.
Not going to kill Helena or Aegon. Like,
yeah. I mean, it would certainly, like, secure things up for him as well. And she's not about it.
No. And again, like, Rhaenyra's not innocent, but this is, again, Alicent being an Otto, where they're like, there's only going to be war. Like, war is inevitable. I'm like, well, no, war is inevitable because you're making it inevitable. You're trying to, like, get this path. Like, you see a goal and like, you see what the end road is, but the thing is, that's not the only end road. Like, you see that, how that's going, and you're going towards it rather than trying to find a way to circumnavigate that.
I won't deny you any of that, but also just my emotions, like the injustice of what Rhaenyra has done with these children. It's so infuriating that I understand her wanting to not, like, take her, this is with quotes, pure blood children who like, it's not like our world. Like, these kids actually do have, like, the magic dragon blood in them.
But so does Rhaenyra's children.
Oh, that's true, because they're just as much Targaryen as that.
They're just as much Targaryen. Well,
I mean, because because the Strongs, they're a noble house as well. So
they are a noble house. It's again. I understand it. I have a lot of issues with Rhaenyra. This is one of the issues I have with Rhaenyra. But I also think that Alicent is acting like she is the better person. She's the higher, but she's not. She's showing that she's willing to get down and dirty and do everything. And again, I know that you see these injustices as more egregious, which they are. But rather than trying to be the better person, she's taking the low road as well. And
it's kind of nearsighted or short-sighted of her.
Yes.
Too, where she's like, and rather than doing what would be best for the realm, she's trying to keep Rhaenyra from continuing to get away with it.
She doesn't understand the consequence of her actions.
Maybe. She's not a big picture gal, I'll say that.
No. I will say, like, again, Viserys' attitude during this entire, he's like,
it's the same as the training. He's just like, oh, this is great. Everybody's getting along.
He's like, this is all I wanted.
Yeah, and there's just there's so much pain in, like, seeing a man so run down smile. Paddy Considine's still killing it. Paddy
Considine, like, actor-wise, he has to be my favorite like portrayal,
Well,
like
we'll
tied with.
I feel like we talk best of. Let's do that at the end of the season,
That-
maybe.
yeah.
But he's certainly up there.
We'll give our Oscars.
Yeah, do a little ceremony.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully there are no new dragons to talk about in episode 10.
I don't think there are.
Maybe one. We'll get there when we get there.
We'll get. We have a long road. But Alicent is walking with the king out, and she's pretty much saying like, "No way, not happening." And the king is like, "This will solve so many issues. Let's just do it." And eventually, she just says, "Okay, you can do this over my cold dead body."
Which feels like a big scene to me, in that I mean, there's 10 years of their relationship that we miss, but this is like the most overt way we see her defy him up to this point in the series,
And-
other than maybe the dress thing at the way. Well, no, I would say this is bigger.
This is bigger. She's openly, like, verbally defying him. And they go back to the king's room, and this is where you see his arms missing. Like, this scene in particular, when she's, like, getting him set up, and Lionel comes in, and the king stands up, and his sleeve just hangs, and it's tied off and knotted off.
Yeah.
And you see that he is. And the best boy, Lionel, tries to resign.
Yep. And wisely, Viserys says no.
See, this is a reversal card.
Uno reversi.
And Alicent keeps on like, "Oh, why are you resigning? Oh, well, what's causing you to resign, Lionel? Lionel, what's causing you to resign?"
And he's like, I can't say.
Which everybody, again, like everybody knows, and it's
It's excruciating.
Mhm. And I think this is the point where we genuinely see that. Well, no. So Lionel does agree that since Harwin has been removed from the City Watch, he needs to go back to Harrenhal. So he at least asks the king if he can't step down, he can at least attend his son to Harrenhal to prepare him to be lord.
Which he's granted permission to do.
Yes. And I think at this end of the moment, when Lionel leaves and Alicent's there, you just see that their relationship is over. Like Viserys and Alicent. They're like, there's.
Is this where he kisses her? But it's just like a little forehead, or maybe that's earlier.
I think that's earlier, but like you can just see like there's
absolutely nothing from her end.
yes.
Like he seems interested in like maintaining just kind of like a platonic
like an image.
yeah, and she doesn't have it in her.
Yeah. It's like she tried early 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's gone. Which Alicent goes to Alicent has a type, doesn't she?
Huh?
We talk about how Rhaenyra has a type here.
What are you talking about?
She's having dinner with Lars.
What you mean the man I called out as the new Otto last
She has a type for the decrepit, apparently. The crippled.
Oh. That's what you're getting at.
Yes. Because they're having, like, they clearly had an arranged dinner set up. Like, it was the two of them.
I find that actually really fun how they're like, they do like weekly goss and pastries, but it's about the whole kingdom.
Yes. And there's very dark undertones there. And it's, again, it's just so sad to see, like, Lars have just such disdain for his father. Like, he
Oh yeah, I'm 100% with you there, and I love Lars, and
He's a great-
as a character. He's a great villain. Oh my, his speech near the end of the episode here.
We'll
is
talk about it.
absolutely delicious.
yes. It's very delicious.
But Lionel's my boy, you know that. So yeah, I'm with you. But the big thing in this scene for me is this feels like to me that this is the only person in Alicent's life who's like she can have like a real conversation with,
Yes.
specifically about the Harwin Rhaenyra situation.
Yes. And she eventually says that like they're talking about how everybody is like preferring Rhaenyra, and she just makes the line like, I want someone to prefer me, like I want somebody to take my side, I want someone to be on my side. And again, I get the frustration because she's going like I think she's already been crazy. Like back in the last episode she snapped, she's she's gone, like she's
Team Black.
Team Black. Rhaenyra's crazy too in different ways, but and Rhaenyra's also, yeah, it's and I don't like, I think she has such a rose-colored glasses of what Otto would be like for her, because she thinks that Otto would be present for her as the king is being present for Rhaenyra, which I do not like. I think she, in this very specific situation, yes, he would be present for Alicent. But if what she wants doesn't align with what Otto wants, it's not the same thing. I really don't think that he would be present for her like Viserys is present.
We won't know. And I'm not denying that, but we did kind of talk about this earlier. So did you have anything extra to layer on there?
No, not really, other than we go to the black cells.
Yeah.
And Lars, he has such a good creepy smile.
He does.
Like the smile he was giving those prisoners when he's showing off his amber firefly and his staff.
Yeah, he's like the Jurassic Park guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which no, I'll hold on to it. But shout out to Matthew Needham. That's the actor. He's doing a fantastic job. And this episode is sort of him rising to the occasion, a new villain.
Yes.
A new real villain who's not afraid to get his hands dirty emerges.
I have a hot take, and I love this character from a Game of Thrones, but I think I prefer Lars Strong over Littlefinger at this. And season 1, if we're going off of strictly season 1, Littlefinger is an amazing character, and I love Littlefinger, but Lars is just, there's something about him that's
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like Littlefinger is a little one note in the grand span of Game of Thrones.
Well, in the books, he's incredible. Like,
and he's a great character. Mm-hmm. But I'm not ready to stake the same claim as you, but I see the potential.
Yes. But essentially an agreement is made between some of these prisoners that are sentenced to death. And it seems like part of the agreement is getting their tongues removed.
It seems like we see it. They don't cut away. You actually see him cut off the tongue.
Yeah, that was rough.
It's wicked. I liked it. I want more of that.
But it takes us to arguably one of the saddest parts of the show for me.
And what's that?
Laena's giving birth.
Yeah.
And
which amounts to a echoing of the first episode, the pilot, the decision that Viserys makes.
Yes.
Or at least the circumstances he's put in.
So I have a question for you. Did you watch the behind the scenes?
Yeah, of course.
So they said that Daemon, when offered the same decision, he laughed or he made a joke.
Yeah, I don't know what they were talking about because he just, by my memory, he's just like, no.
Well, because he says, because they come up and they tell her like the baby won't come. I've done everything I can do. We can cut. And he just says, "My brave girl." Like, and he just
okay.
Like he has that. He just says that, but that's before they talk about the C-section. They're just telling him about that, and then they say, "Hey, we can do this." And again, it's showing that reflection. there's a lot of again, I think they did if they were trying to show Daemon, like the light that they were trying to show Daemon, I don't think really came across of how they were actually showing Daemon, if that makes sense.
Maybe not. And there's something I feel like they not I'm not going to go so far as to say fumbled this, but it feels like there could have been more poetry in this echoing again of that first episode, where it really doesn't come to much. Like he's not really, like, it's a tragedy, but he's not faced with a choice so much in the same way that Viserys is, where he had like the pressure to produce an heir for the sake of the realm.
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't take a ton from it. And maybe that's me.
And so here's, again, we've talked about this before. I think Matt Smith has disagreements with how Daemon was written. And I think that he portrays it on the screen. Because, again, there's a particular scene that I'm actually really upset that they cut out, because it seems unnecessary that they cut it out, other than, like, it's during Lars's speech. And it would be a little weird if it was during Lars's speech, but I still think they could have had. But anyways, Laena gets up, goes to the beach, and at an hour, 8 minutes and 14 seconds, we see Vhagar on the beach.
And this is again like kind of a moment of poetry, where it's from earlier in the episode, the Rhaenyra's birth, where she's like pushing through and she's like bleeding all over, like the trail of blood behind her as she walks up to that and like takes control of her circumstances.
Yeah. And Laena tells Vhagar to Dracarys, and you can tell that Vhagar is very confused, doesn't quite understand.
Yeah.
And I also, like, again, maybe this is me just being sentimental and wanting the dragons to have this level of love and respect for their riders, but it doesn't seem like Vhagar wants to do it, because she tells Vhagar like 3 or 4 times.
Well, not just that, she's screaming at him.
Mm-hmm.
Good bit of performance. And
eventually, right when Daemon comes, and again, this is the tragic part for me, is it's when Daemon comes out and he sees Laena get lit up, and he looks horrified. Like, he looks horrified. He looks quite heartbroken, if I dare say, like, at this situation. And it's sad.
It's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy.
But not the last one in this episode.
Not the last one involving fire either.
yeah, you're getting there.
So Sir Harwin's leaving. Rhaenyra he's saying goodbye to the boys.
Yeah. And then the one kid's like, "Is he my dad?"
Is he the dad?
Oh, well, you decide.
You decide.
Weigh in, comment below.
Who is the father? We should have that theme music. Sir Harwin Strong, you are not the father. But you can just see through this entire goodbye, like, Luke is just too young to realize what's going on and just like seems to be playing. But Jace clearly sees something is going on. And like you said, he asks if Sir Harwin Strong is his father. And
Rhaenyra wasn't quick enough. He knows now.
Not quick enough. Which I guess that's a little bit like something contrary to my conspiracy. Like, if Sir Criston Cole is the father, she could have just confidently said, "No, Sir Harwin Strong is not your father."
Yeah. I don't know. So did you know that it's in the book it's not confirmed who the actual father is? So it's implied that it's as it's portrayed in the show, but
again, I haven't read it, but from my understanding, everything that's going on is like almost being written from the Maesters' point of view that are around. Like, they're taking everything down and like noting it. So it's not necessarily a book like how a Game of Thrones is, where there's character point of views and you're hearing their internal thoughts. It's more of like, and then Rhaenyra went here and said this, and then this, and that.
Yeah, more Bible-y.
Yes, more Bible-esque. And yeah, so it is interesting that it's not confirmed. What if Laenor is the fun? Well, we also do know George is very much involved with these shows. So George is,
Regardless, I think it's the smart choice to be more clear cut about it for the show.
yes, definitely. Which this next scene is
Well, also, so Harwin promises he's coming back.
yeah, there's a lot of promises made to Rhaenyra that are not necessarily kept. Rhaenyra has a type of men too that don't necessarily follow through with their promises.
The best intentions, though.
Yes.
What a dad.
What a dad. But Laenor and Cole are training together, and Rhaenyra asks for a word and pretty much tells her that they're going to leave to Dragonstone. And
Pack your bags, baby.
and again, very much platonic, but this scene in particular showed that Rhaenyra does love Laenor. Like, because she's very much like, hey, we need to go. We need to be safe. You can take Carl with us. Like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Mhm.
And I don't know. There was just some tenderness from Rhaenyra showing that she does have love for her husband, even if she's not intimate with her husband.
Yeah.
But-
I don't know if it's love. It's more of a practical thing to me.
I do think there is a level of love. Again, it's not intimacy love, but like,
I'm not feeling that because that's my thing that I said up top is just everything between them reads like it not just reads, it screams platonic.
the reason because even if it is a love, there's at least familial love because they're cousins. Like they grew up together. Like
They get along.
they get along. And I think they're at least really good friends.
Yeah.
Anything else on that in particular?
No, so that cuts to the Strongs traveling, and we see some suspicious looking characters.
Have you seen them before?
Maybe, but there's a little pin or brooch of some kind on one of them that bears an odd resemblance to Lars's cane.
No, not a firefly.
Yeah, yeah,
no consequence whatsoever.
yeah, and I think that was just they were just watching the royal parade there.
Yeah, watching it. And, I think the Strong family failed their fire inspection. Because that night, not only did they fail their fire inspection, they failed basic safety protocols because the doors weren't opening. Like, what is going on with Harrenhal? Like, the doors are not opening. Fires are just starting randomly in the most important person's room. Why is there so many accidents going on in this castle, Austin?
Well, Lars would have you believe that it's cursed. So I mean, there's no amount of code that can make up for an actual curse.
Is it the ghosts of Harren?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Lore, you can look. We'll get into it someday.
Right on.
But tragically, both Lionel and Sir Harwin die
In a fire. And this is such a tragedy. And I would just like to underline that in the time my boy Lionel was hanged, 10 years even, so little tragedy occurred that they didn't even have to make any episodes.
Nope.
And back to the actual drama resumes within days of him passing.
You do understand, though, whose hand when all the drama is going on, Austin.
I know, and that's the greater tragedy of it, that it's arranged by a member of his own family.
Yeah. We get they go to Dragonstone.
Is this in the voiceover from Lars? Because the Dragonstone moment, it's more visual of them around.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. This is the moment. So you've been very excited. I'm going to just let you take the floor.
Well, it says, what are children but a weakness, a folly, a futility? Through them you imagine you cheat the great darkness of its victory. You will persist forever in some form or another, as if they will keep you from the dust. But from them you surrender what you should not. For them you surrender what you should not. Damn it, I messed it up. But for them you surrender what you should not. You may know what is the right thing to be done, but love stays the hand. Love is a downfall. What a killer villain speech.
What a killer villain speech.
And it's even pertinent to the very thing being portrayed in the moment. Yes. I mean, this is an icy dude.
And again,
cold-hearted.
I alluded to this last week, but it's such a tragedy to me because at the dinner, like Harwin and Larys were seeming to get they were talking and like.
Yeah, they did seem to have some kind of brotherly relationship.
And the fact he wasn't even asked to kill him.
Well, I mean, that's part of his whole thing is I think it's to his advantage.
Yes.
Because then he gains the inheritance. But he's also kind of using Alicent's vague indication that she would want that to happen to like as a shield.
Yes. Now, there were several things that were going on while he was giving the speech that I do want to touch.
Just to be, because the implication there is then maybe her father could come back and take his original slot if that opened up again.
Yeah.
Just to be clear on that.
And I'm going to bring some of that up a little bit afterwards. We see King Viserys holding the ring that we know was Emma's ring. And he's sobbing over it. He clearly realizes that his relationship with Alicent, it's dead. It's gone. It's their relationship is strictly just positional. It's not even platonic. Yeah. And he truly misses his wife. And this is something that the next thing I want to talk about is also something that I have really strong feelings about, but we see Daemon on the ramparts with his daughters. And he's just sort of looking side to side and then walks away while his daughters are dying. It was leaked that there's a picture of Daemon kneeling down and hugging the both of them, in that scene in particular. But they chose to cut that out.
So I think you said dying when you meant crying.
Oh yeah, so they're crying. Sorry. Yes.
So for a second I was like, they died?
No.
But,
so,
okay, I'm back with you.
The daughters are crying and Daemon's just sort of just standing there looking side to side and then walks away.
Yeah.
But before that, he was hugging them and comforting them, and they chose to cut that out. But it got leaked that was something that was filmed. And again, I understand they're trying to show Daemon as a very complicated character. But I also if they're trying to show that he's this heartless character who only cares about one daughter, he would even I feel he would at least be comforting the one daughter if he's
Yeah, maybe they didn't get that shot. I'm not as bothered by it. And I think what they're going for in the wrap up to this episode is that, again, we've had that 10 years in between where characters have been sort of comfortable. Things have happened, but not episode worthy.
Yeah.
And it's the parallel now with Daemon and Rhaenyra, where each of them lose their partner to fire, no less. So it's a pretty direct parallel, and it inspires them to take action.
Yes.
And even more so to leave their current circumstance where they have been for quite some time.
Yes.
And to me, part of that is I think they're trying to make it okay, Daemon settled down for a second here, and sort of his grounding was Laena, and now that that's gone, he's
going back.
Yeah, it's bad boy summer. Maybe the hair's going away. Who knows?
I think he learned that he's not.
But just on that, if that is the goal, and I'm not gonna say it's like a 10 for form, but I do think that they convey this pretty well. I do think that doesn't really track with a shot of him hugging and comforting his daughter.
For sure. But I also feel like Daemon is clearly a villain. I am not doing Daemon defense for him, but I feel
Anymore.
No more Daemon defense.
Yeah. We meant what we said. We're done with it.
But I also feel like they're trying to overly villainize him. They're not trying to humanize him in any way, from what I've seen. Like, or well, they have these spurts where they humanize him, like when he's working with his daughter, teaching her High Valyrian. Like, but why can't they have more? Why can't they have a shot? Like, even if they showed that shot of him hugging the daughters, and like, what if the one daughter pushed away from him, and like they went off and cried, and then he looked, and then he walked away? I feel like.
See, I don't mind that. To me, that would have been ideal, but it also is probably just they had me having a little bit more production experience. I'm probably like, they had the one shot. It was a call, do they want it or not? And they went this way.
I get it. It's just, again, for me, how I see it is they're trying to villainize him, overly villainize him when he's more of a more of a anti-hero rather than a straight up villain.
Yeah, I'm also, from my experience, satisfied with the level of humanization that we get in this episode. And and it's also kind of complicated because the episode previous was him at his most villainous. So in a way, what we do get in this episode feels a little bit like backtracking, but I'm kind of okay with it because it represents such a great leap in time.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm just relaying that's my bone to pick with this episode. Like, otherwise, I really loved it. But just talking about, like you said, Alicent. So Lars gives that speech, and Alicent is like horrified. Again, she does not understand the consequences of her actions. This is her level of immaturity. Like, she's expecting something, but she's not thinking about what's going to come afterwards. And Lars rightfully is like, you get what you want. Like, now you can bring your father back. Like, why don't you write your father now? Somebody's going to have to be hand. Like,
He's so wicked.
He's so wicked and he's so good. And again, like, you can tell that she's still quite horrified, but I think she's sort of accepted, like, okay, if we want to reach what I want to reach, like, these are the steps that I'm going to have to take.
Yeah. To me, this is kind of Alicent stepping up another level, even like shoring up what she is about, and whether intentional or not, it wasn't, but she's aided in the crossing of a line.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes.
In this episode, and that's kind of a big deal.
It is a very big deal. But before we wrap up everything, there's some dragons we need to talk about.
Yep. Okay, so any final thoughts on the episode? I think this is a great episode.
Great episode. I think we need at the end of the series to do ratings for each episode, like a wrap up of.
I'd be into that. Yeah.
And I'd be like,
or even just like a top 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Like, I don't think this is the best episode we've seen so far, but it's still a really good episode.
Yeah. And like we said at the beginning, it's like a high pressure episode, which I think they were up to the task.
So before we get into the dragons, do you like this episode more than you like the pilot, or did you like the pilot more?
Ooh, I think that the pilot is more of a feat in that I do not tend to enjoy pilots. And I didn't say that on our first episode there, but it takes me a minute to get into a show because I'm all about characters, and there's no way that you can like get to know and care about a character in an hour. I've seen some really compelling short films, but with the goal of creating a larger series with like a lot of characters, it's basically impossible.
Yeah.
So to me, that they were able to set up so much and still make that first episode so entertaining is a greater achievement than this episode.
Yes.
But you can make an argument either way.
I like the politics, the backroom plotting that was going on in this episode a lot, but I think I definitely preferred the pilot. Like, the costumes were so much better in the pilot. There's a lot more action with the tournament that was going on in the pilot. Like,
yeah. More dragons in this one, though.
More dragons, which... do we want to talk about Vermax or do we want to talk about...
Okay. That is the transition. Let's do by order of appearance in the episode.
Yeah, so we had Vermax, like we mentioned, very small dragon, clearly quite young. Almost a green color hue to it. I know.
So my note here is that he looks like and this is only going to work for 30% of our listeners, but for those, it's going to paint the perfect image. So critical. I wrote down Trix rabbit yogurt, strawberry kiwi. And we'll see as we get more of this dragon, but in this particular lighting, that's the exact palette, and I was really into it.
I did really like it, and it does seem to show that younger dragons have that more vibrant colors. I don't know if you've picked up on that.
Yeah, maybe. Because this is like our first close-up of a dragon this young. Because this, I mean, it's not a hatchling, but what's this dragon? What do you reckon? How old? Based on Game of Thrones.
Well, that's tough. Based on Game of Thrones, like maybe a year, 2 years. But at the same time, like, I don't know, because you'd think that it would have hatched because they made the note.
Yeah, because this is probably something that we can verify if it's the same age as dear old Jace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
it's the youngest we've seen. And because he seems to be
if my theory has any validity to it, he'd be 9 years old.
Well, he'd be like 10, 9 or 10.
Not quite 10.
Because how old is Rhaenyra in the pilot?
Rhaenyra in the pilot,
14?
I think she's 14.
I'm not sure that this is making for a compelling podcast, but I think where we've got here is to imagine this dragon growing into what Cyrax looks like in the pilot is kind of absurd. But maybe that's how dragons work. So I'm gonna guess that this dragon is younger than its eventual rider.
Yeah,
or proposed rider.
Maybe 5. But the thing is, like, Dany's dragons just grew exponentially, but that maybe is because they're not kept in a cage, like underground, like they have everything to roam. So I'm gonna go with 5, maybe 6.
Anyway, the point is, it's the smallest dragon that we've seen, especially up close in this much detail, and it's a really good rendering. I already said that the lighting of this scene was kind of ideal for this, but they really brought it with the sound design on this scene. I don't know if you took note, but kind of a Jurassic Park vibe to this creature, and I could see that being a point of inspiration, not only in the physical design, but in the actual sound design. Hey, that's our second Jurassic P reference. I bet you're happy on that dino, boy.
I'm all about my dinos. But no, I was really pleased with what they did, and it had very much like Disobedient Dog vibes to it. Like when the goat comes up, it immediately like went hissing over, and they had to like put the sticks in front of it before.
Yeah, and I actually made a note on that it doesn't read with quite the level of intelligence that we see in some of the older dragons. It's like more animalistic, more lizard-like.
It's child. It's a little baby dragon.
Cute.
But let's talk about Vhagar.
I'll let you kick that off.
Oh, I loved Vhagar. Vhagar is just, she big.
Yeah.
And I loved, because Vhagar is as old as the Targaryen Empire they've built here in Westeros. It was one of the 3 dragons that, because there's Balerion, I can't remember the third, but then there was Vhagar that was ridden. And Vhagar appeared to be some sort of like greenish, grayish color. Like you could tell that it's old because the skin is sagging, like the scales are not shining. Like there appears to be that like fishing net on her back, a part of her.
Was it Meraxes?
Yes, Meraxes.
Okay. That's
Yes.
just weird.
R.I.P.
We're the Dragon movie podcast.
Yes, so there was Balerion, Meraxes, and Vhagar. And Vhagar is the only one that is still alive of those three.
I love that. Wait. Yeah. Yes. I love that Vhagar. You can see that though.
Yes.
It reads ancient.
Yes.
Not just in size, but the texture of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like kind of hunched in a lot of like you see that especially in the scene where Dracarys is Daemon's wife, Laena.
Yeah.
Where Dracarys is Laena, and also it's got like holes in its wings.
Yes.
Like it reminds me of but all of this is contributing to like an even more impressive, threatening creature. It's like in Pirates of the Caribbean how like the Black Pearl sails are just like riddled with holes, and you're like, well, that's not practical, but
it makes for great TV.
It looks so cool.
And I also note like Vhagar appears to have the horse skull representation. That's what I picked up on.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I can't like...
Because it's kind of a boxy head.
It's boxy, but then it has like the rounded snout at the front. I was having a real hard time like with Vermax.
It's too young. We'll see.
My leaning is more of they use the dinosaur skull rather than the wolf, but it clearly is not like the other.
See, I'm with you too that I would lean dinosaur, but I think that's just me in Jurassic Park mode, like feeling like this is a velociraptor.
Yeah. No, that's sort of where I'm at.
I really don't want this to diminish your feelings on Vhagar, but unfortunately it did. It in the face shape especially remind me in a few shots of the 1998 Godzilla.
Yeah, I could see it.
I'll just leave that there. And not a great point of inspiration, not a great creature design in the first place. This is a much better version of that model, but it's kind of in there.
I did also want to point out, even though like I don't know if you really picked up on this, when we talked about Caraxes, I talked about how you could see the level of hate, the animosity, the anger that was in it. Vhagar almost seemed tired. Like, I don't know if you got that feeling. Like,
yeah, and you sort of get that in its movements, which is another thing that I love how that conveys its immensity in the time it takes to flap its wings.
Yeah. And like, I respect it. But it's almost a little bit of an like obviously they're not working with the inheritance cycle with Aegon, but they talk about how the older ancient dragons like all they do is sleep. Once you get that big and you're just so big, all you do is eat, sleep, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is a level of truth to that when you're that big of a creature, because they do say in a Game of Thrones that dragons never stop growing. So Vhagar is just constantly growing bigger and bigger, and she must be tired. Like she is.
Listen, she deserves it. If she wants to turn in at 7:30, it's her right. Who's gonna stop her?
No one's gonna stop her. But like you don't get that level because she's killed so much more than Caraxes has killed. Like her kill count versus Caraxes' kill count, it's not even comparable, but you don't get that level of like malicious evilness that is in Caraxes.
No, I wasn't picking up on that either. And I did take note of the eyes. And they're kind of snake-like. They're the yellow there, but something in it. It doesn't have that what you're talking about with Caraxes.
Just that desire to burn everything.
No, it's more like an old tired wizard of a dragon.
And it also, do you notice how like long it take for her to blink? Like she just
She's huge.
she big.
Her eyes are a mile long.
But is there anything else that you want to talk about Vhagar or Vermax?
One last note on Vhagar. When she does the Dracarys, you see into her mouth, and her teeth are huge, like tusks on tusks, and there are just rows of them. I loved it.
I can't wait to see her in battle.
Devastating.
Can't wait to see that. Well, Austin,
We have one other segment, our new one, for wrap up. Is that what you're leading to?
yes, that's what I was leading to. Why don't you tell the audience this segment?
You got a fit pick for me? On a runner up? I can do mine if you need a second.
Yeah,
to
go
think.
ahead. I did not pick one. I'll perfect. I didn't do my homework.
It's fine. I assumed you'd be taking note. You were doing it automatically up to this point.
There's none that really stood out to me this episode.
And I was on the lookout, and it'll be reflected in my picks. There aren't a lot of standouts here. So my runner up, and it's kind of funny, the two that I ended up choosing here.
Okay.
But my runner up was Harwin holding the baby. And that sort of ties into, because he has like the blanket wrapped around his forearm, but that man just looks real good in his City Watch commander get up.
I will say this. My runner-up is Daemon in Pentos robes. Like when they like.
That was on my list.
That was on the list. There you go. Like I really did like, because it's Vacation Dad Daemon.
And I've already said this enough, but bonus points for the long hair back with it. It's a good look.
Yes. And my number one, like, I did give her credit last week, so I have to give her credit this week. Alicent, when we first see adult Alicent, when we first see Olivia Cook, when she's wearing that deep purple, that has to be the best dress in my opinion that we see. Like,
Solid.
It's not quite the same as the one that she came to the wedding dinner at, but she knows how to pick her dresses that are
But and it's also like this show has great costuming.
Yes.
Across the board. So a week episode of House of the Dragon costuming is leagues beyond the vast majority of programs on television.
You're telling me that Merlin, the British TV show Merlin, didn't have better costumes?
Well, fantasy just wasn't quite as popular as it is now.
All right, what was your number one?
My number one is Lena's maternity fit in Pentos. And she has a few, but there's one that she's wearing that it has kind of these like silver loops at the top that look just amazing with the hair.
I'll have to look it up because it's not coming to mind for me, but I know that she had a couple really good fits.
Yeah, and just again the whole black Targaryen. Well, I mean, I know that she's not a Targaryen; she's a Valyrian, but the hair,
yes, it goes well
with the tone. Not to get weird about it, I just think it's a good look.
It's a good look. I can't deny it. And that's a small council's small fits.
All right.
Austin, where can they find us?
We'll let the wizard talk about it. You can follow me on Letterboxd, though. My handle is @TheMediaBinge. My name is Austin Snyder. Do you want to shout out anything?
We are up and running at Big Liz Pod. We are on all podcast platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Give us a check out. Give us a look. Give us a follow. Comment. Am I crazy for thinking that Sir Criston Cole is the father of Jace Targaryen?
If I remember, I'll put up the images here again.
I'll remind you then. But good night, everyone.
That's it. Okay. I think that was our longest one. Jeez. Goodbye.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at BigLizPod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.